This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, we've packed a number of shows together to give you some highlights. I know you're going to enjoy the show. Thank you for being with us today. Rich, welcome back to the show. Honored to have you again and get to spend this much time with you. I know it's hard as much as we travel and we're focused on our businesses, all these things. It's rare we get to spend this much time and really getting to know you better because I know the listeners are enjoying it. And if you didn't even listen to yesterday's show, I encourage you to go back and where Rich shared a lot more about his story. I know you are going to be so encouraged by him and Kathy and how they've built this business, but also the book that he's recently written that I think is going to help so many just changing your mindset, getting into this space and in the real estate and what it can do for you. Let's dive right in. What is real wealth, right? Let's talk about that. Well, you talk about real wealth a lot, but what does that mean?
Yeah, it's the name of our company, and there's a reason behind that because we see real wealth as more than just money. Money's important, absolutely important, but we see real wealth as having the money, but also the freedom to live life on your own terms. So real wealth to us is really being able to do what you want, when you want, with the people you want to be with, to enjoy each moment. It's very holistic. So it's about having that money, but it's also how you live your life. So that's what real wealth is to us. It goes beyond just the money piece.
Yeah, love that. And it does. They're like, man, you don't have health. It doesn't matter how much money you have, right? So I guess, can you elaborate a little bit or maybe give some examples of what that looks like or how maybe you even coach people to think through the real wealth you're talking about?
Yeah, and it came from several reasons. One is that, the story I'd shared before with your listeners around being diagnosed with 6 months to live 20 years ago. And that was such a wake-up call. And thankfully, the doctor's diagnosis was wrong. And I did survive that melanoma, but it was a real wake-up call for me around getting the most out of this life and not waiting for it, because you just never know. Tomorrow could be our last day. So it's like, how are we living today with our family, with our kids, with the world? Are we giving back? If you went out tomorrow, would you be very happy with who you became and the life you live? And that came not only from that experience of being told I was 6 months to live, but also coaching clients for 15 years. And I was a certified business and personal coach, and I worked with hundreds of clients and saw that of so many of them were so focused on the business piece, the career piece, the money piece, that sometimes, especially as Americans, we get blinded by that. We get blinded by the success trap, and we're trying to make more money. We're trying to go to the next level. Some ego gets woven into it. And so with my coaching clients, I would often say, hey, let's just stop for a moment before we dive into this coaching over the next several months. And I want you to assess these areas of your life and give me a rating between 0 and 10. And I would have them rate their career and their money. And then I would also ask them to rate health and fitness and significant other and their romance, their friends and family, their community, their spirituality. And so often, a lot of the people that I coached were executives or entrepreneurs, and they're like, no, this is not what I want to coach on. I want to coach on my business or my career or making more money. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We will definitely do that. I promise. And just like you just said, Whitney, if you don't take care of this area called health, you could lose 100% of that money. If you don't take care of this area called significant other and romance, you could lose 50% of those assets if that doesn't work out, right? So, and then there's sometimes you see that all of a sudden their eyes would open up and they'd be like, oh, good point. And it was crazy because when they did rate that, usually it would be almost a higher level of satisfaction in career. It might be like an 8, and their finance might be like a 6, and they might look over at significant other and romance and it's a 4, or health and fitness would be a 3. And so it would just kind of really have them wake up and look down and say, okay, I do need to set some goals around this area of my life. I need to improve this. And over time, they would always say, thank you. Thank you for pulling this out of me. Thank you for challenging me to step up in this area of my life. So that's why real wealth is so important to me and to Kathy. That's the way we started our company. We wanted to keep it real, and we wanted to really focus on more than just the money piece. We know that, if you don't have enough money, that creates a lot of stress, and it has you be a less effective human and not as good of a parent when you have money issues and stresses. We know that. And once you do get to that place of having enough income, and this is scientifically proven, from studies, is like there's a certain minimum amount of income that we need. And beyond that, more money doesn't make us any happier. So it's be very careful of not getting into the, if I have more money, I'm going to be happier trap.
Yeah, it is a trap. I think you say that right. I love how you talk about, how you helped really open their eyes, I think, to being mentored in other areas that they needed, that they thought they weren't looking for. Right. And I think back about the role even my wife played in our business. She's not directly involved in our real estate business, but my goodness, she affects how I operate every day. Right. So it's she plays such a big role in our business, even though she's not behind a desk in the office. Right. It's so crucial, that relationship. And I appreciate your focus on that and even helping us to open our eyes to other aspects of our business. Because I think at first, too, I thought I just wanted mentors in real estate, right? Or just in, the business side. And then as I've had such a focus on that, I've had to, step back and say, well, wait a minute, I would like to have some mentors in other areas of my life as well. Right.
Good for you. Yeah.
And I've had to think about who those people are. Well, maybe they're not a successful real estate entrepreneur, but however, they're much further in their walk in their faith than I am, or they're in their marriage, or they're whatever it may be that I'm looking to grow in as well. Right. And so is there any tips on finding different mentors for different aspects of your life? Or is it typically, one or two or one-stop shop? How do you advise people on that?
I hear a lot of people, and I talk to a bunch of people, and they are often so focused on that they don't realize that to be more successful, they need to work on these other areas of life. Like you said, your faith and your family and all that. They think that if they just read more and go to more masterminds and attend more courses and all that, then that's their ticket. If they just learn how to invest more effectively, or how to underwrite deals better, or learn how to syndicate better, that's their ticket to success. And all those things are important. But what I've seen is that it's the people who are taking care of their energy. They're taking care of their life. They're more effective. They're more focused. They're more effective when they do work. So it's absolutely vital. I just want to put that out there. It's when we get better, everything around us gets better. So if you want to be a more successful investor, if you want to create greater wealth, you have to focus on all these different areas of life. Don't do a single-minded focus. So when it comes to mentors or coaches or consultants, I think that's a big one. As a coach, I went through specific coach training through the Coactive Training Institute, the Coaches Training Institute. And that is very Socratic. It's very much about helping the client. As I said before, it's helping the clients find their answers, find their resources. You see clients as creative and resourceful and whole. You don't try to tell them what to do or give them the answers. So that's a coach. I think that having a coach is absolutely vital to really take your life and your business to the next level. I also think a mentor is absolutely vital, and mentors. A mentor is different than a coach, though. And a lot of people are kind of combining the two terms, but I see a mentor as someone who's been there, done that. They're like, if you do what I've done, you'll get to where I am. And so I think that's key, is having mentors in your life. So if it's a real estate focus, you want to find a mentor who's specialized in syndications. If you want to learn single family, you want to have a mentor who has put together a big portfolio of single family properties, and it's running passively and it's creating great cash flow. Whatever it might be, that I see as a mentor. So it's finding that specific niche and saying, okay, I need someone. This is what I learned. This is what I need to learn. This is what I want to do. Who is an expert here? And reaching out to that person, whether it be a paid mentor or a mentor who's just willing to give and help you get to the next level. And there's a lot of those people out there. You get to, I'm sure, look at you. It's like you get to a certain level, you want to help other people get there too. So there's this giving piece that's built into most good humans, that they get to a certain level and they want to mentor, they want to help, and you don't have to pay for it. You just have to show up and do what you say you're going to do. So I think that's it, finding that specific thing and then looking for a mentor there. And then sometimes it's a consultant, So I wanted to define those as like a coach, mentor, and a consultant. A consultant maybe hasn't been there, done that like a mentor, but they have specialized their education in one specific area, like say finance. They really know finance. There might be a CFO. They really know how to read a financial statement, analyze it, look at the numbers, all that. Or if say you're wanting to be an underwriter, you can get that specific consulting on that, how to do it effectively and correctly, or hire a consultant to come in and help you do it. So I think it's just really important to look at those three different things: a coach, a mentor, or a consultant. Sometimes you can get all three in one, but Usually not.
Yeah, that's so wise. We could spend another whole show just on that, and no doubt about it. But I just love your advice in that and thinking through that, as you have done that so well and have coached so many also. So jumping back to the book, dive in a little bit as far as the perspective on the like assets and liabilities. I think the mentor has maybe a different perspective there, or unconventional perspective. What does that look like in the book?
Yeah. In The Wise Investor, the mentor definitely sees things a little bit differently. I guess I would say holistically, no surprise, right? The mentor is kind of like me in the future if I become wiser and in better shape and more experienced and all that. So, Robert Kiyosaki did an amazing job opening people's eyes around liabilities and assets. And he did a great job with Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki actually wrote the foreword for The Wise Investor, which I'm very honored about. And the mentor takes that to the next level. So he says an asset is something that provides income or better health or more time or more happiness. And a liability is just the opposite. He sees liabilities as something that costs you income or it costs you health or happiness or time. So it's just a really cool way to compartmentalize things into like two different categories, really, asset or liability. And so you can look at the people in your life and say, is this person an asset? Are they giving back to me? Am I giving back to them? Are they making my life better? Or are they a liability? Are they a drain? Are they toxic for some people? Are they costing me happiness? Are they costing me time? Are they not a giver? Are they a taker? So that's just one example of asset versus liability. You can also look at the things in your life that you might be buying or purchasing, saying, is this truly going to bring me more income? Or is it going to bring me happiness or more time? So say the time thing, you might say, okay, if I hire a bookkeeper, that's an investment. It could look at that like an expense. But if it's going to bring you more time, which is the thing we can never get back again, right? So the mentor would see that as an asset, hiring someone who's going to help free up your time, someone who's an expert in their chosen area of focus. And that would be investing. And you hear that in business, our people are our greatest assets, right? Our employees are our greatest assets. Absolutely true.
Love the whole thought behind liabilities and assets. I look forward to reading the book as well. I'm hoping to get a hard copy when it comes out, but that's incredible. Love that thought. What about, the mentor in the story? I think it explains how wealthy people think, right, compared to poor people. Walk through that a little bit, just the thought process behind that.
Yeah, and this is just observations of, the people that grow wealth, the members that we've helped, people that I've met, conferences and all this. It's like there's this true difference in the way what wealthy people think and the way they operate and the way poor people think and operate. And when I say poor, I'm not just talking financial. I'm saying it's like that old saying, some people are so poor that all they have is money, right? It's that same type of thing. It's like I live in Malibu, California. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money, a lot of rich people. And some of the people are stoked and happy and they're giving back and they're making a difference. And some of the people have a lot of money and they're grumpy and they're miserable and they're not living a balanced life. So that's the real big thing, is really stepping back and saying, how do wealthy people operate? How do wealthy people think? And the mentor goes over some of those things. And, one of them is what we were just talking about, is wealthy people value their time. So they're always looking at, how can I create more freedom of my time so I can be with the people I want to be with and do the things I love. So that's a huge one. So wealthy people are willing to invest money to free up their time, and they'll invest time to free up their time to build systems and structures in a business that is actually bringing in, more passive revenue. That's one big one. Another big one is that truly wealthy people operate from a place of inspiration instead of envy. Poor people come from a place of envy. They see someone with money and they will come up with reasons why that person shouldn't have the money, or how it's not fair, and how they probably made that money through some type of manipulation or something. And it's a poor mindset. Really, it's mindset. And wealthy people that I've seen and have experienced, they see it totally different. They see someone who's accomplished something great and they're like, wow, that's inspiring. I want to do the same thing. How did they do that? How did they get there? And that's why you have people on your show a lot of times to share their stories of how did they get to where they are, is because that's wealthy people seek that. They want to learn it. They want to hear it. So I would assume that most listeners of your podcast have a wealthy mindset, and they're not coming from a place of envy. They're looking for inspiration on, okay, if this person did, I'm going to do the same thing. And then I would say that, there's so many different ways that the mentor describes it. But the third I want to share is that wealthy people are focused on more than just creating a job and themselves. They're focused on creating a legacy, making a difference. So they're always looking at how can this money, the bigger I build my investing portfolio, or the bigger I build my company, the bigger I grow my income, the more I can give back. And I know that you do that. I know that's a huge value for you at LifeBridge. I know it's a huge value at Real Wealth. We've given back almost $1 million now to charity. It's been one of our focus and our targets, and it's something that it rallies our team. When our team knows that we're not doing it just for the income, that we're also making a difference in the better that our company does, the more we're able to help Habitat for Humanity and Operation Smile and Mentors International. It's like, that's the way wealthy people think. They're about making a difference and about giving back. And it just almost it snowballs. All of a sudden, life just gets bigger and better when you start giving back. And it's cool.
It's amazing how much goes back to what we think, right? How we think, what we're telling ourselves. And fortunately or unfortunately, at times, we believe so much of what we tell ourselves, don't we?
It's so much, right? Yeah. Or we believe what other people are telling us. And so that's why it's you become like the 5 people you hang around with the most, right? The old Jim Rohn quote. It's so true. And I've noticed over the years that the people that I'm attracted to and want to hang out and want to spend time with have a certain mindset. And it's a wealth mindset. It's a giving back mindset. It's a growth mindset. They want more out of life. They want to grow their business. They want to have an awesome team. They want to have freedom in life. So yeah, how we think is huge. Wow. What we focus on, we create.
Rich, I want to dive into that even more. In the next segment, we're going to jump even more into the right financial mindset. And I just wondered, as you have coached and mentored so many people, like when do you see this shift happen for people? Or, you see so many people, come from nothing, right? Maybe they even had a poor mindset. I think I was raised partially in that kind of atmosphere, to where you're almost like you're not inspired, like you mentioned in the other segment, right, by other people's wealth and how they got there. It's more of an envy type attitude. But when have you seen that change? What helps most people to change just that thought process?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've thought about that too much, but I would say it usually doesn't happen in a moment. Sometimes you hear they like, oh, I went to this conference and I had a breakthrough moment and awareness, or I was at church and all of a sudden God spoke to me and I had this new awareness, or I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I walked away from that with but that's not the norm. The norm is it happens a little bit over time. And it usually is because someone was intentional. They were doing small daily actions. They were educating themselves. They were staying disciplined on doing what is, living life the way they want to be living. They start getting up earlier. They start exercising. They start studying and learning. They start focusing on acknowledging other people and being curious and everything. And they slowly over time, actually what they're doing physiologically is changing their brain. It's neuroplasticity. It's the old Hebb's law is when neurons fire together, they wire together. So we actually are changing our brain each time you make a choice to do something a little different, whether that be something good or something bad. It could be a good habit or a bad habit. When you do that repeatedly, your body is literally laying down a substance called myelin between your neurons, and you're changing your brain. So each time you do it, it's almost like cutting a path through the forest. The first time you go to cut the path, it's really difficult. You got the machete out, you're trying to get through this path to get from where you are to where you want to be. And then the next time you've already done some cutting and the path gets easier and you might clean it up a little bit. And over time, it gets this beautiful, easy path. It's the same thing with our brain and our thoughts. So I don't think it's usually not this big change that happens in an instant or in a moment. It's usually these small actions that we do on a regular basis. And over time, we start to change our mindset. We start to believe in ourselves more. Our confidence grows. Just think about that with real estate investing. In the beginning, there's so many terms. You're like, what's IRR? What's a cap rate? So many different things, and all of a sudden over time, you're like, oh, I know that one. I know that one. I know that one. Then your brain becomes this encyclopedia and you start to really understand it and know it. And it seems easy, but when you look back in the early days, you're like, oh man, how am I going to figure all this stuff out? So I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You said you hadn't thought about it much, but I think it was real what you just said. It was the small daily actions All right. And it happens because we're intentional. I loved how you said that, or you're intentional and you're learning. And it seems like small things, I think, in the moment. But man, 6 months later, you've done this thing every day, whether it's reading books or educating yourself in some way, or even in your case, years ago, exercising, right? It may only be 30 minutes a day, but you know what? A few months later, you start to see some results, right? And I think you surprise yourself almost. In this case, you talk about changing your brain. My wife would have a lot of fun with that as far as me changing my, I'm just kidding. But she'll be happy I could change my brain a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. But that's incredible. I love the answer, and that it's possible. It's not just for some people, right? It's like anybody can work at this and make small incremental improvements daily that, man, build up to big things. So, many of us seem to encounter fear, negativity, when it comes around our financial future, even our goals. But what about some strategies for getting through those tough situations? What are some strategies that you've used to get through those tough situations like many we've talked about?
Yeah, it's that. And as I shared on the other episode, and we were talking about that gremlin I still have in my head, so everyone, I've coached CEOs to entrepreneurs to attorneys to everyone. And every single person I've ever coached has what I call the gremlin. It's this inner voice in our head that tells us we're not enough, or we can't do it, we're going to fail. Sometimes it can come from real sources. Like you say, I'm going to invest in real estate, and you have people start saying, oh man, my parents lost a lot of money in 2008. They were invested in real estate, so you got all these devil's advocates out there, and it's like, it joins into that fear. And one thing I love about adventure sports, which I love to do, and I know you've done your adventure sports. I see you up on top of a horse standing, riding around. Look at that. And I'm like, no, that's scary. But, I love to do adventure sports like rock climbing and skydiving, surfing, things like that. And there's an element of fear management in there. And so I love this topic. I love, how do we manage that inner voice? How do we manage the fear so we can move toward what we want? I think the key is, and even going back a little bit, we talked about those small steps that you get better and you get more confident. I think it starts with getting clear on what's the outcome you want. So what does it look like? What does your life look like in the future, say 10 years out? Who are you becoming? Who do you want to be? I love the writing your own eulogy. I think that's a really powerful exercise, but it's getting clear on who do you want to become? Who's the type of person you want to be? What's the type of parent you want to be? What's the type of business person you want to be? And what is it that you want to accomplish and do in your life? Is it whether it be giving back or the home or the lifestyle or travel? So getting clear first on what that is. And then checking in and just saying, okay, what do I need to do to get there? And coming up with those small steps. Like, I'm going to start with this each day. I'm going to study for a half an hour. Each day, I'm going to work out for 10, 15 minutes, start with, they call it stupid small habits, so it's easy to do it over time. And then you keep doing it. And then that process, after getting clarity on what you want and kind of mapping out the basic plan to get there, I think it's really important to stop and just say, okay, fear, what do you have to say about this? To just check in, because we know that fear lives in our subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is way powerful than this conscious mind. It's so much bigger and so much more powerful. And it's more powerful when it's in the dark. If that gremlin is there, if you got that fear that's running the show and holding you back, so often we're not even aware of it. And when I would coach clients, I'd say, so let's just check in. What might your fear be saying right now? Well, what's that little gremlin in your voice? What's in a little gremlin in your head? What's that voice saying? And I would have people check in, and you just stop and say, oh my goodness, my fear is telling me that if I fail, that I'm going to be homeless out on the street. No one's going to love me. It's like over a process if you keep saying, and then what does your gremlin say? So it's being aware of that. And so that gremlin, that inner voice, whatever you want to call it, it is so powerful when it's in the dark. But when you shine the light on it, when you have awareness and you stop and you check in and say, hey, fear, what do you need right now? So often it will give you an answer. And so it's really not like the enemy. I know that the gremlin makes it sound kind of like an enemy, but I really like to look at fear as a friend, as the protector, because it's born with us. And ever since we were born, it's done its best to keep us safe from failure, from danger, from pain, from ridicule, from embarrassment, from loss. So it's like, this inner voice is doing its best job. It's like screaming to be like, no, I don't want you to lose. I want to protect you. So when you check in with it, you say, okay, fear. I mean, breathing helps a lot. A couple deep, deep breaths. It helps us slow things down, helps us be more confident, more aware. It increases our heart rate variability so we can be more calm in the moment. You check in with that fear and say, hey, what advice do you have for me here? What do you need for me to move forward? And so often that fear will actually tell you what the obstacle might be. That fear will tell you what you need to do, what you need to learn, what you need to study. That fear will tell you who you need to connect with. That fear might say, you don't know enough here, so you need to find a mentor who's done this, or a consultant or a coach like we were talking about. So I think that's the best way. I know for me and my clients over the years, it's checking in with the fear, finding out what it's concerned about, and then honoring the request. There'll be something there.
Yeah, I love the thought of like, even going back to when you first started talking about writing out who you want to become, what do you want to accomplish? Like, I think just the process of doing that helps you to think through a lot of things that you wouldn't typically think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it even helps. I know doing that at times it's not as easy as a process as I would like for it to be, right? But it does take some time and being very intentional in thinking through that, because we do that in our business, or I hope you do it, right? You do this thing we call strategic planning, right? And we think about, okay, a year from now, or 3 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what does our business look like? How many units or assets under management? Or we think about all these things, right? Well, how many employees are we going to have at that time? Then we reverse engineer. All right, well, who's the next person we need to hire or whatever? But we don't typically do that for ourselves, right? I think it even goes back to your point in another segment, just a holistic type, view, right? We do that in our business, but we don't always do that, or I haven't always, not until I've met people like yourself who helped me to see things like this, right? And then in doing that planning for ourselves, and how do we get there? Is that similar to helping us cope with the fear management and some of that as well?
Yeah, for sure. Because that, when you get clear on, I think her name is Gabrielle Odejan. She wrote a book in a book, I don't know the title, I wish I did, but her process is called WOOP. It's WOOP, and it's Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. And so she's a university professor, I think it's Stanford, and they've done a bunch of studies with large groups. And one of those studies was they split the group in two. Half the group, they had them set goals, and then they tracked their results over 3 months. The other group, they had them set the goals, and they said, this is your wish. What's the outcome look like? Now, what are your obstacles? So they had them look at the obstacles and then come up with a plan. So the first group just came up with the wish and what they want, and then the plan, and they went after it. The other group also looked at the obstacles. The group that looked at the obstacles, it was, I think, 70 something percent. I can't remember exactly, but it's way up there as far as the amount of goal accomplishment by the group who looked at their obstacles ahead of time was something 70 something percent higher than the group who didn't look at their obstacles. Because when those obstacles did come along, which we know they will, the other group wasn't prepared. Whereas the other group that looks at the obstacles ahead of time, they were like, say it's like going on a diet, you want to lose some weight. You look at the obstacle ahead of time and say, well, going to a party could be one obstacle. What am I going to do there? What's my plan if I go to a party and there's no healthy foods? Another obstacle might be, your spouse comes home with, this big dessert, that could be an obstacle. What you're going to do there. So I think it's an important process. So looking ahead of time at what you want, and then looking at the obstacles, it's going to increase your odds of doing that.
Yeah. Wow. What about, I know something all of us are concerned about at some point in our life, or maybe too often, is just the real thought of what others might think, right? We're talking about this fear, and you talked about potentially being, the homeless factor. Are we going to lose everything if we make this decision and jump out and whatever it may be? I know we joke a little bit about when we sold the farm, right? So we could jump into real estate, but I had to get to a point to where I just couldn't care about what other people thought, right? Because everybody thought that something was really wrong in our house, right? Because we were selling the farm. We were, it just didn't seem like the logical thing for most people to do, right? But I just knew that I had to be that committed to make it happen. But how do you help people get past what other people might think? I'm not sure I'm good at that, but I had to do that. But what would you say to somebody that's like, Rich, I'm worried about what everybody might think if we make that decision or we do fail?
Yeah, that's good. I want to flip it around on you. So what did you do there? When you were selling the farm and all that? So how did you handle it internally?
It's hard for me to figure that out, other than I just knew that I had to stay focused on the outcome, and I had to stay focused on like, this is why we're doing this. This is like something that's bigger than us, something that, like starting the foundation to help, many families to be able to adopt. There was a connection, our children are all adopted. And so there's a connection there, right, to them too. And it was a mission that I could even paint for them, right? Something they could even understand when they're even little, that this is what we're pushing towards. And even through the hard times that even fear, I think it was about like helping them to see that. But I couldn't quit because, I already painted this vision for them. It was something my wife was passionate about too, helping these families be able to adopt. And I think that it's, as I'm talking through this now, right, and you're helping me with this, like that had to be bigger than the fear.
I love that. Yeah, that's, woo, I love that. It's so cool. Yeah, it's the purpose, when you have a purpose and a why, you're humble, it's weird. It seems like it would be the opposite, but I think when you have a clear purpose and a clear why, and that purpose and the why is about making a difference, about your family or making the world better or serving people, then that takes priority over the gremlins and the self-doubt and what other people might think. It's just like, who cares what they think? I'm on purpose, and we know that is absolutely scientifically proven that we are happiest and most fulfilled when we're moving toward our purpose, when we're moving toward our most important goals, when we're creating the life that we want and we're getting better. That's when we have true happiness. So I think you just nailed it. So well done. That's it. Having a purpose, something, a why that's more important than what other people think.
With your wise coaching or even just questions and helping draw it out. I appreciate that very much. So, Rich, I know you talk about there's no such thing as self-made success. And what do you mean by that?
Just that so many people, you hear this, oh, wow, she's a self-made success or he's a self-made success. And then you talk to these people and they're the last ones to say that they're a self-made success. I have some friends, and you and I both have shared friends in this industry that are very successful, especially financially, when you look at them and beyond that, they have jets and they have, 10,000 doors and, all this stuff that's very successful. And you talk to them and they never talk about how great they are. They always talk about and acknowledge the people that help them get there, the mentors, the people on their team. So, and the reason why it's so important to not come from that mindset of I'm going to be a self-made success. If you come from that mindset, then you start coming up with all your goals and your plans based on you doing it yourself. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm a self-made success. No, I'm not going to accept help. I'm not going to seek help. When you get out of that mindset and say, I'm going to be I don't know what you would call it, a people-made success, whatever it might be. When you get out of the self-made success mindset, you start to look for the who can help me go to the next level. Who's the mentor I need to meet? What about my team? Let's focus on our team. And that's the way we are at Real Wealth. It's like, I really do my best to not take credit for things like, to use the I, so many people have an I problem, right? I did this and I did this, I came up with this. And it's like, I really strive as a leader to always say we, because it's the truth. What we've accomplished at Real Wealth and our company is the we. It's our team, as there's people on our team that are so much more talented than I am in some of these areas. I have my own unique abilities and talents in my area, but no way would we be where we are as a company without the people on the team. So that's why. So get out of the self-made success mindset.
Love that. No doubt about it. Can relate to that as well. And I think we've talked about a lot internally lately as well. As my business partner and I, in the beginning, you're doing everything, right? And you have to, but then eventually it's like, man, everybody on our team now they're better and more skilled, whatever their focus is, than I probably ever would be. I mean,
it's the best. It's the best. Yeah. It's more fun too, right? It's like everyone's using their unique ability. They're doing what they're good at. They're doing what they love to do. They're growing in it. Yeah. And it's just like, that's culture.
Yeah.
That's culture.
I think even before building a team, like you mentioned, there's so many people in this industry, and you included, who have influenced me in one way or another. That's helped me, or, it may be one or two things, even on numerous interviews, it's like, help me learn something else or help me to move forward in a different way, right? It wasn't just me figuring all this out, right? By no means, to say the least. So Rich, it's an honor to have had you for this long, right? This many segments, and just your willingness to share so much about what you have learned and how you and Kathy have made this happen and done this, created this business and helped so many people. Just very grateful for your time. Again, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and also how they can find your book. And I'm hoping by the time this show comes out that it is available in paperback, but we want the listeners to know it's out in Audible and Kindle at least, but how can they find it?
Yeah. So the book, The Wise Investor, it's a modern parable about creating financial freedom and living your best life. That's our subtitle. But yeah, it's on Amazon, all major booksellers, as Kindle, ebook, Audible. I did the read and the narration on the Audible. Robert Kiyosaki wrote the foreword for the book. It's through Rich Dad Advisors, it's my publisher. So I'm an official Rich Dad author now, which is kind of cool. So anyway, you can find that, The Wise Investor, anywhere. And then as far as our company, really simple, it's just realwealth.com.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope you have liked and subscribed to the show. Please tell your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show. And I hope that you are learning and growing. Don't forget to go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing today.